Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built. By Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, and by ENT Allergy and Associates with 6 convenient locations around Westchester. Now we are joined here on the Beat in Westchester by Steve Greenberg, Pollster at Siena College outside Albany. Steve Greenberg, welcome back here to Westchester Talk Radio. Happy holidays to you and yours. You have gotten extensive coverage in a wide variety of media based off your latest survey at Siena, and this is a post-election kind of script. A few weeks after we all went to the polls, New York Post ran an article and gave you a nice chart of all of your polling, what you've done, and Michael Goodwin, too, quoted you extensively. And my question after all this is, looking at the numbers, how did Kathy Hochul get reelected?
Well, let's step back to a place where you and I have been before, John. And first, let me just say happy holidays to you and all the listeners and viewers. This is a state where 50% of the enrolled voters are Democrats, 22% of the enrolled voters are Republican, 23%, 1 point more than Republicans, 23% of the enrolled voters of the state are independents, not belonging to any party. So it's a tough hurdle for a Republican to overcome to win a statewide election. It's why it hasn't happened now in 2 decades since Governor Pataki won his 3rd term back in 2002. There is no question Lee Zeldin gave it a hell of a run, made it the tightest gubernatorial election in New York in 3 decades. And as we come out of Election Day, now, it's interesting that Zeldin gets a slightly better favorability rating from voters than does Hochul. But to go to your point, Kathy Hochul is not disliked by New York voters. The problem for Kathy Hochul is not enough New Yorkers either know her well enough or like her well enough. Her favorability rating is break even, 45, 43. Her job approval rating is a little bit better, 49, 44. That's a 5-point positive job approval rating. She won the election by 6 points. So it's not like, popular Republican running against an unpopular Democrat. What we had was, prior to Election Day, 2 candidates that the voters weren't thrilled about either one of them. The voters made it a close election, a 6-point race, and now coming out of it, they say, all right, Hochul, half of us like you, half of us don't. For Zeldin right now, 46% of New Yorkers view him favorably, 32% view him unfavorably. Right before the election, he was at a 37 favorable, 41 unfavorable. So he went from 4 points underwater, now 14 points on the positive side. That was a net turnaround of 18 points for Zeldin. It's probably, a reflection of how voters viewed him during the campaign. But I think it's also a reflection of the fact that the millions of dollars in commercials attacking Lee Zeldin from the Hochul campaign and her allies, those have stopped for now, a month and a half. Voters aren't hearing how horrible Lee Zeldin is on TV or radio every 30 seconds. And I think that probably plays into it as well. What's interesting, it's not surprising that 82% of Republicans view Zeldin favorably, but independents by a 2-to-1 margin, 51-25, and even 29% of Democrats. Now, I say it that way in the poll, and again, you and I have talked about this, in the polarized political world we live in, for somebody of the other party to get 29% of, the other party thinking that person views that person favorably, that's pretty good in the real world these days. Certainly, we don't see 29% of Republicans having a favorable view about Kathy Hochul, and we don't see 29% of Democrats having a favorable view about Donald Trump. So it is a little bit unusual right now. And that's to Zeldin's credit that, somewhere between a quarter and a third of Democrats say, you know what? Election's over. Hochul's the governor for the next 4 years, but this guy Zeldin, he's okay.
Have we ever had a gubernatorial election where both candidates were not maybe as well known as they should be if they want to be elected to statewide office?
No, not in a long time where you had two candidates. I mean, well, first of all, you got to put an asterisk on this one because Kathy Hochul was the incumbent. She had the power and the bully pulpit of being governor. She just had never been elected by the voters, and she had only been governor for a little over a year at the time of the election. So, a lot of voters knew Kathy Hochul was the governor, but that didn't mean they knew a lot about her, who she is, what she wants to do. All they know is what they saw, or a lot of voters, all they know is what they saw over a couple months on TV and in the newspapers. So I think Hochul has an opportunity here, having just come through a hard-fought campaign, having taken over in a messy midterm transition almost a year and a half ago. She has an opportunity to hit the reset button with voters. She has an inaugural address coming up. She has a State of the State, her first as the 4-year elected governor. She has an upcoming budget and legislative session to deal with, to lay out her priorities, to show New Yorkers that she's fighting for them, for the issues they care about. So I think she has an opportunity here, even though she doesn't come at that opportunity per se from a position of strength. So long-winded answer back to your question. No, I mean, Lee Zeldin became much more known than the last several Republican candidates who ran against Andrew Cuomo in gubernatorial elections, Rob Astorino, Mark Molinaro, now Congressman Molinaro. Congressman-elect Molinaro, I should say.
Dutchess County executive.
Exactly.
And the former Westchester executive, Rob Astorino.
Exactly. And, but let's go back to 1994. George Pataki wasn't particularly well known till he ran for governor against then Mario Cuomo seeking a fourth term when Pataki beat Cuomo. But Pataki's first reelection in 98, the Democrat was Peter Vallone. He was then the city council speaker. Mm-hmm. He was known in the city, but barely known outside of New York City.
Nobody knew him in Buffalo, right?
Yeah, not so much. So no, we have not had in quite some time an election. You really have to go back to Mario Cuomo's first election, 1982, when he was the lieutenant governor running to be governor, and the Republican was a businessman named Lou Lehrman. So there was probably the last time you had a case where you had two lesser known candidates at the time.
Mm-hmm. George Pataki, of course, came out of Peekskill back in the 90s and beat Mario Cuomo. Now,
after, by the way, we should point out to former Governor Pataki's credit, he won every election he ever participated in and won against an incumbent for every office he ever held. Mayor of Peekskill, assemblyman, senator, and governor.
And now he's doing a lot of good work over in Ukraine through his group, his foundation.
I should point out he never lost an election, but he did briefly run for president. And didn't.
Yeah, that he did. Yeah. For a few weeks, I guess, right? Yeah. He got out before he could, I guess, have that image tarnished and his numbers tarnished. So maybe he should go into the Guinness Book of World Records. And
he still has the perfect record.
Yep. Steve Greenberg, Siena College, Pollster, Siena College, just outside Albany, Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com on the Beat in Westchester. I'm John Marino, and of course, as you pointed out, Governor Hochul has a lot to deal with. It seems like we across the state want her to deal mostly, first and foremost, with crime.
Yeah, I mean, well, we asked voters, what's the top priority that Albany should focus on as Governor Hochul and legislators begin the 2023 legislative session? And top two by far, cost of living. 63% of New Yorkers said that was one of their top two issues. 31% said it was the top issue. And for crime, 58% of voters said it was one of their top two issues, but it was the number one at 36% of voters said it was the top issue. We also asked voters a series of three questions that we've asked a few times previously. How serious is crime across New York State right now? 90% of voters say crime across New York is a serious problem. 59% say it's a very serious problem. When we asked back in June, it was 92% saying serious, 63% very serious. Back in February, 91% serious, 60% very serious. It really hasn't changed. How serious is crime in your community? The number goes down. 63% say crime in their community is a serious problem. 28%, a little more than a quarter, say it's a very serious problem. And again, those numbers haven't changed over the course of the last year. And similarly, 61% of voters say they're concerned they could be a victim of crime. 26%, about a quarter, say they're very concerned they could be a victim of crime. And again, not much change since the beginning of the year. So I think for Governor Hochul, there's a very clear message here from voters. We've said crime is a serious problem, more so across the state than necessarily in our community, but for a lot of people in their community, nearly 2/3 say crime in their community is a serious problem and have been saying it for a year. When we ask voters what they want the governor and the legislature to focus on as we begin the 23 session, crime, certainly a top two issue that they want voters to focus on. And when we ask voters, how do you think Hochul and her administration did over the last year? We asked them a series of 6 different issues. How did she do in terms of delivering on her state of the state goals from January? Did she make progress on making New York's community safer? Only 22% of voters say she made progress on crime. 58% said she didn't. So again, I come back to the reset and put a ribbon on it. For voters, crime is a problem, a big problem. They want their state government in Albany to address it. They don't think Hochul did enough of a good job on it last year. If I were Kathy Hochul, that's where I'd focus.
Bottom line, she got reelected in the end. I guess that's what really matters. And Kathy Hochul,
look, she does not have to face voters for another 4 years unless she decides to run for another office, which I certainly don't foresee.
President?
So she could, theoretically, I suppose. Every governor of New York, I assume, can run for governor if they want. But no, she doesn't have to face voters to run for re-election for 4 years. So she doesn't have to worry about polling numbers in an electoral sense. But let's not forget, when a governor, a president, a mayor has a 60, 70, 75% favorable or job approval rating from voters, they are much more powerful, much more effective as leaders than when they have a 30 or a 35 or a 40% approval rating. So while Hochul doesn't have to worry about electoral politics, I think she would like to, enjoy that warmth of voters feeling good about her, and it would give her additional political power.
Kathy Hochul describes herself as a Joe Biden Democrat. That part of her job is to help Joe Biden around these parts. How is the president doing now, whether or not Kathy Hochul has had any real influence in that?
Well, Biden's wishy-washy from New York voters' perspective at the moment. 48% of voters view him favorably, 46% view him unfavorably, 2 points on the positive side, not much. Down a little bit from right before the election, which is interesting because what we've seen on the national polls since the election is Biden's numbers slowly creeping up a little bit. But not New York. Before the election, he was at a 53-45. Now he's at a 48-46. Job approval, similar, a little bit better. 51% of New Yorkers approve of the job that Biden is doing as president. 47% disapprove. Obviously, you have a wide partisan divide. But, when it comes to Democrats, 75% of them view Biden favorably, 20% view him unfavorably. For Republicans, it's much stronger negative, 89% negative, unfavorable, only 10% favorable. And Biden, like many Democrats in New York, including Kathy Hochul right now, not doing particularly well with independents. Right now, Biden, 35% of independents view him favorably, 57% view him unfavorably.
Is this country heading in the right direction?
Not according to a majority of voters. 59% think the country is headed on the wrong track. Only 32% think we're headed in the right direction. Up a few points from right before the election, but not much. And New Yorkers feel a little bit better about their state, but again, not a whole lot better. Only 38% of voters say the state is on the right track, compared to 50%, a bare majority, of voters who say that the state is headed in the wrong direction.
Steve Greenberg, happy holidays to you and yours. The numbers guy, we'll talk to you next time around.
Thank you, John. Same to you and everybody else.
Our thanks again to you, Siena College pollster Steve Greenberg. Happy holidays, Steve, to you and yours. Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. On the Beat in Westchester, I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that Service built, also by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, and by ENT Allergy and Associates, with 6 convenient locations all around this county of Westchester. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Orange, Putnam, Dutchess, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube. Download our app, Westchester Talk. Take it with you 24/7, 365, anywhere and everywhere you go. And yes, we are now on Apple Podcasts too.